All right. Blessings and good morning. Welcome, everyone. Here we are on this glorious day, Thursday, August 23rd of 2018. We made it through another eclipse series. We made it through another retrograde. Woo! Mentioned a couple of tarot card readings ago. Remember when we were just coming into the retrograde? I was all cool. And I know I've referenced this before. I've talked about this before, but if you were born during a retrograde, and it's in your astrology that when the retrogrades come about, with the flow of them is that much easier because you were born under that. And so you've kind of got a skill, or you've got an ability to be with that energy that can otherwise be a little challenging with communications, with travel, with electronics. You know, there's that stuff, but it's also that ability. It's that ability to slow down, to cultivate a stillness, to cultivate a reflectiveness, which is what that retrograde always is about, that Mercury retrograde. Let me see if I can slide this over a little. It doesn't really make that much difference, does it? Okay. But that seems to be, right, our ability to process. And now, granted, there is a divine ability in instantaneous processing where there isn't any processing. And you know what? You'll have to pardon me 1 second. I need to move the fan. I was working this morning and rushing back to get in here. So I know I hopped on a minute or two late. I really appreciate it. Let me just move the fan. I'll be right back. Just makes such a difference. So hopefully that will do the trick here. Yes, so the difference is, right, is that this Mercury retrograde, though, that we just experienced happened in and amongst those crazy eclipses. So it wasn't just a Mercury retrograde. Oh, blessings. Good morning, Will. But it was, you know, a retrograde on steroids. So anyway, I know some of you just breezed through it, and I have we have a dear person in the community here, Expand. I don't know if she's going to be able to hop on this morning, but you know, she belongs to the aspect that believes in not believing in Mercury retrograde. You know, and I totally dig that, and we get that, right? Because it's like it's all an illusion, time, space, you know, all this stuff here in the 3D. And so that's really groovy. And if you can really sit into that, it is so. So in and amongst the collective, you know, granted, we've been doing so much work for so long on ourselves, healing. And I know a lot of us during that eclipse period were really sincerely working on ourselves on a deeply healing level. And so the retrograde, again, there's a skill in being able to sit with the retrograde, because you're invited, move this out a little bit, because you're invited, again, to be still, to know who you are yet again as the layers peel back, as the layers of the onion, as the layers of your healing path peel back. Well, who are you now? Who have you been? Who are you now? Where are you going? While you learn to sit in stillness in the present moment, also cultivating the ability to be able to look ahead without being attached to your past, without being attached. And I'm starting us off talking about this aspect here this morning because our topic is stress is a 4-letter word. Make up your own 4-letter word. Any of them will suffice. Anticipation versus expectation. And now we did get into this last week, yet there's so much more. And of course, I want to go deeper into it with you. Before we begin though, I want to welcome everyone. If it's your very first time to this channel, I pray and I affirm. Well, and even if you're returning, I pray and I affirm that everything I share here truly serves your path of spiritual growth and spiritual sovereignty. And our sovereignty is our ability to be independent from someone or something else outside of ourselves, making us happy. We have learned that we are a master of our time and space, and that it is up to us to navigate our paths in life, each situation and each moment, respond accordingly on the level and to the degree that we wish to experience life, that we wish to experience ourselves, that we wish to experience a situation, a relationship, and everything. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning last night and I recorded on the phone. You know how I do the dictaphone thing on the phone. And now I don't even know where my phone is. Somewhere. But it was something to the fashion of everything. And I know we already know this, but it was just like that where it comes back, right? The aha. Everything is a relationship. We have a relationship with one another, right? Just community like this. We have a relationship with our friends, relationship with our family, and perhaps very different aspects of the spectrum depending on the family member, the brother, the sister, the mother, the father, the granny, the grandpa. You know, they may be all different levels of ways that we relate. We have a relationship with who we were in the past. We also have a relationship with who we think we're going to be in the future. We have a relationship with substances, with water, if we choose. Remember, we can be unconscious, which is fine, and enjoy our water, knowing it's delicious and a blessing. But we can also take it that one step further, as we did. I'll come back and I'll put links up here. I don't know, last month or two, we did a 4DT on water memory, right? And cultivating that relationship with water that you drink and activating the water molecules. And so creating a higher frequency, changing the vibration of the water. We have a relationship with our bodies. We have a relationship with food. We have a relationship with time. We have a relationship with money. We have a relationship with sex. We have a relationship with all the things we fear, and we have a relationship with all the things we love. And so thinking about this, anyway, so last night, recording on that dictaphone, I was thinking about, wow, this relationship is everything. The relationship that we have is everything. It's such a big continuum, such a big part of our experience because, yes, you can be a hermit on the mountain. And even if you don't see anyone and like some mystery person drops you off water or food at the bottom of the hill and you never see anyone and you're all alone, you still have a relationship to your time and space, to your mind, to your mouth, to the words that you speak, even if there's no one there and you're just talking to yourself, to the words that you think, to the land, to the home, to the food that you eat. So there's still a relationship around people to understand that there is a constant relationship happening. And so depending on how we navigate those relationships in our life, we're either aligning our energy, aligning ourselves to reside in, to vibrate as, and rest in the frequency of the trinary system, or believe in stress to the degree that we remain chained and bound to the binary system. So again, before, because we're going to use the board today, and before we go deeper, I do want to say thank you for being here. If it's your first time, blessings and thank you. If you have been here a few times and you like the information, I'd be so grateful if you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you'll be notified of my videos. Excuse me, and drop a line in the comment box if you're hanging out and say hello. I'd appreciate it. All of my information is down, or it should be down in the description box. And I thank you everyone for your support. I do have a PayPal link down below, and I welcome you to donate to this channel. I really, really appreciate it with all of my heart, all the ways that you show love, that you give thumbs up. And again, I pray and I affirm that everything we do here and that we exchange truly serves your path of spiritual growth and self-mastery, of sovereignty, freedom, sovereignty to reign majestically like a king, like a queen, over the domain of your mind, of your emotions and your body. To me, that's like the height of sensual living. Motivation is when you have attuned to the degree with your senses. You've met your senses. You know the high points and the low points of where your senses can lead you, right? Through addiction, through cravings, or through, cultivating through your sense organs. And as you cultivate greater self-love and come into balancing and really using the greater aspects of your senses, which we did, again, another 4DT, I'll come back and put a link later to, but we totally talked about the senses regarding our psychic abilities, our ability to intuit, right? And through the tongue, through the eyes, through the sense of scent, through touch, through feeling, through all these ways. And so what happens is once we get over the stress of where we need healing, being touched, sharing intimately in that way, where we need healing through the addiction, through the craving, where we need healing through the trauma in the body or the cells, as we heal all that stuff out and we find ourselves coming into a divine balance, well, then we can, this body, the senses then become cleared and activated and conjoined in a divine alignment, which allows us to then enjoy the sensual world in a new way, where we are not bound by addiction. You don't have to eat the whole box of donuts. You can have one donut and be like, you can orgasm. You have my permission to orgasm over one donut. If you've been heavy on the addiction, you're like, no, I just say no, and that's your willpower and that's your thing. And so you cultivate, honoring your sensuality in a different way. There's so many different ways. But the point is that we get to the point where we're not so fragile, right? We're not so able to be pushed off of our center regarding our senses, that we own them, we grow into them and learn how to use them as a master. And then sixth sense activation, all the senses connect as one sense. Aligned for our highest good, that help us then to bridge that heaven on earth realization. So again, if you're just joining us, I am Tuesday May Thomas. Welcome. This is our weekly 4D Trinity live stream. 4D is fourth dimensional consciousness, and that relates and reflects the consciousness, the power, the truth of your heart. And it might sound really new agey, flowery, polka dotty, yet that's probably the most badass thing, the most ninja warrior badass thing you'll ever do in your life. And if you learn how to do it continually, that's powerful. To learn to live from the truth of your heart. And here at 4D Trinity, all of the topics and all of the information, all of the tangents that we go on, all of the metaphysics, all of the multidimensional, quantum, timeline jumping, all this stuff, Reiki, healing ourselves, learning greater ways to practice self-love. This is all about creating the correct conditions within the mind, body, emotions, and vehicle. Again, that we can make peace with our 3D, with this world that we've been taught that we're in, so that from this peaceful space we can begin to rest and hear and connect in that relationship with the heart. In honor of that. And it is quite a huge thing. Saying that, though, I strongly believe that there's nothing to change about anyone or anything. If there's anything to change, it's within us. And that's only if you are seeking to change. If you're happy, you're just fine with how things are, fantastic. We're going. We're going to trinary. We're moving. We're creating these correct conditions, mind, body, emotions, that healing, the tweaking, being dragged through the coals like these eclipses, really working with these things energetically, planetarily, galactically, cosmically, so that multidimensionally our energy calibrates and aligns so that this little tiny body, that all of the energy that you are is squished in here, although it puffs out, right? Squished in and then bloop, out through our Taurus field, through our Merkaba, through our aura. But there's a lot of you in this little tiny body. Even if you're 6 foot tall, there's still a lot of energy squished in to this body. And what we're doing is we're learning how to create the correct conditions on a multidimensional level. Again, so we can just be peace here in the world with the stories we've been told about this place, and know that deep within us, through knowing thyself, through healing thyself, that this is just the tip of the iceberg. What we see out here in the world, what we're taught, is the extent of ourselves, being our body, being this world, being a car, a college degree, a job. We connect through grounding, through learning how to honor and align all of those qualities within us, which is the constant practice of self-love. Someone recently asked me, we were having a conversation, and I said, oh yeah, well that's it's all, I teach self-mastery. And they said, well, what is that? What is self-mastery? It is the conscious, sustained. So no matter what happens, no matter where you go, right? Even if you go, fuck, and you have an old triggered response or pattern to your relationship with food, people, places, things, whatever it is, that you catch yourself, you do the switcheroo, you bring it back, and you place love there. You change that negative response or string of words into a positive affirmation. You shift from being unconscious of how you're just letting your emotions or reactions or patterns or habits steer your life, and you're starting to say, I'm going to own my thoughts, my voice, my energy, and where it goes out to. And as you start to do that, you start amassing self-mastery. As you start to listen deeper to your heart and honor it and follow it with how it guides you, you amass self-mastery. This is the practice of that consciously sustained perception of love, so that no matter what it is that the world throws at you, do your best. Happen. Not the worst thing that can happen. Stop saying that. Stop asking that, because the universe will show you. But if you change it to say, what is the best thing that can happen? The universe will show you. And I'm taking the long way around. Of course, this is how we roll here at 4DT. But this totally has to do with our topic of where we're going with anticipation versus expectation. Stress versus love and peace. Our ability to cultivate a spiritual will power that is a muscle, an energy muscle, which is, again, your ability to choose love over and over again. And we'll be getting deeper into this. So again, fourth dimensional consciousness, 4DT, what we do here at this show is we look at all of these different aspects of our multidimensionality. We look at different ways to cultivate a new language of light here so that we have new words. We learn and we discuss and share here tools, metaphysical energy tools. So now we not only are developing a new language of light to see ourselves, our worlds, our bodies, our health, our relationship with the greater whole in a new way, but now we're having this integration of these new tools as well, little by little. If you stick around and if you watch over time, we are accumulating, we are amassing a great body of wealth here. And I'm so very grateful that you join. I really, really am. I love this community so very deeply. So namaste with so much love, everyone. Again, if you are just hopping through, driving line in the comment box, I'd be so grateful. So, anticipation and expectation. So isn't it interesting, you know, the way stress works? Because thinking about this topic, and as you know, if you are a subscriber and a regular, that I do a weekly tarot energy forecast. And this last week, I spoke on this experience of stress that I have not felt. I mean, I had to really like go back in time. And granted, I've been through crazy emotional stress and addiction. Remember, we had that 4DT. Big time. When we were right at the cusp, when we were right in the middle of the eclipses, we did a 4DT. Let me dig out that link up top as well. Where am I going? What am I talking about? I had not felt stress creeping in and creeping I did since probably 2010 is what when I thought about it last night, I was like, you know, looking back really. Because what has happened over my life is I've come into 4D consciousness and I've been living heaven on earth realization, as many of us have, for a very long time. And you get used to being chill. You get used to being at peace. You get used to being detached from the cray-cray of the world. You're like, whatever. There's so much more. And you know that love is the truth. So you're like, interesting. But it really doesn't affect you because you're living on a different timeline. You're living on a different quantum dimension, if you will. And so, but over this period of those eclipses and stuff, as I had expressed in a recent tarot reading, I was sitting there doing work at the computer and I could feel stress creeping in. And I had to really sit and take some breaths and like really consciously calm myself down, because I realized that even though I looked calm on the outside, deep inside, there was this grating stress that was like two sand blocks just rubbing back and forth together, slowly grinding. And I'm like, what is this? What is this noise? Granted, the eclipses, the retrograde, I've also been working more than I have in a long, long time, just over these couple months. So there's been a lot of activity in learning to manage that, right? Still meditating, still doing my practices, yet going through an emotional upheaval. There was this constant grating stress that I needed to do more. I needed to go deeper and ask myself, how can I serve you? Ask my higher self, what's going on here? How can I better take care of myself? And so as a part of our practice today, once we've discussed a few of these topics, a little later, we're going to do a few practices. I know it feels like it's been a millennia, although it hasn't been, but it feels that way to me. Since we've done like a long, juicy meditation on 4DT, and I'm not promising that today, But what I am promising is a handful of short 1 to 2 minute mindful meditation reps of practice, because it is so very important to have those tools, even if it's just something that you remember in the back of your mind. It's so important to have them. And what's even more important than having the tool is using the tool. Using the tools. So often, not so often, let me rephrase that. I work with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. There's a group of people within the people that I work with that perceive stress within them and all around themselves. And so everything is stressful. Everything contains a continuum of a lack consciousness. And that's what I was making our notes last night. Oh, and I even have my notebook. Where is it? I'll have to grab it. It's on the floor. Where we're thinking about these different levels of stress and how they enter us, right? Let me get my notebook. Thank you so much for your patience. So, you know, there's funny levels of stress, right? For instance, the ways that stress gets in and creates a groove, like in an album, right? In a record. Like, I remember once having a neighbor, an elderly neighbor, and I'd be going for my hike. I'd see them out on their porch. Oh, hey, and we'd stop and we'd have a bit of a chat. Great, lovely. Now, granted, they did like to talk a lot. And so the chat was very extensive, and sometimes even like an hour or more of really them just talking. And I would listen, and I'd be like, one time it happened, I was like, that's cool. I'm getting to know my neighbor. That's awesome. Weeks and weeks went by. Boom, we crossed paths again. I was leaving the house. They were out on the porch. We started talking. And again, they're talking and talking and talking and talking. And I'm going, I got to be somewhere like soon, but I can hang out for another few minutes. So anyway, but then what happened is it was this really funny thing where I had to laugh at myself, because then it started where every time I was leaving the house, they were like opening the door and like looking for me. That's how I felt. So they could have the conversation, so they could be heard or seen. And they'd start getting into the thing, and I'd be like, oh, I actually am just leaving my house to get straight in my car to go to work, so I can't do this. And so this kept happening, where every time I'd leave, I swear to God, it's like they were like waiting for me. They'd come out, and then I'd cross, and I'd be like, shh, I gotta go. I don't have an hour or 20 minutes or 40 minutes to, hang out. So what happened is then, because this kept happening, I mean, it was like this hilarious thing, and it kept happening, is I didn't realize it at first, but this was starting to cultivate this low-grade level of stress in me, where I was realizing, like, every time that I left the house, I was anticipating I have to have some kind of, not a battle, but energetically in my head, it was a battle, right? That I'd have to like do the whole, like, I gotta go, this whole thing. And of course that's all in my mind, but that started happening. And that's like every day leaving the house, maybe once to 3 or 4 times, depending on what my schedule is. And so that's a lot of stress, where every time you're leaving, and because often I'm really just into the car and straight, and I have just that amount of time to get to where I'm going. And so lingering around is generally not going to happen, especially when it's 100 to to 120 degrees outside as it is out here in the desert where I live. Unless you're in the shade. Anyway, right? These low level aspects of stress, and how even that I realized was stressing me out. Now, here's the funny thing, is that while at the beginning of all that, after I had my first hour-long convo and a couple long combos with that neighbor, and then started realizing that that's what they needed every time I left my house and crossed paths with them, and then realizing, though, once I got it, I had to let it go. And I had to place love there and cut the cords between me and this person and them and me, and just let love be in that space between us, because they're a beautiful person. They're a great neighbor. They're a wonderful human being. It's just that, you know, that meeting in the middle, creating those healthy boundaries energetically and in the 3D. And so what I understood is that as this kept going on, me bumping into them stopped happening. They just stopped, right? As I cut the cords, I placed love there. I would leave the house anticipating that they would still be coming out and that I'd have to do this thing to get in my car and to go. But they stopped doing that. That crisscross of paths stopped happening, yet the memory, the pattern within me. Now, this is important, right? So get this, because see how this perhaps compares to something for you in your life. The memory, the imprint of me going through that stressful situation, right? And this is funny. This is funny stress. What do I call it? We call this, yeah, this is funny stress, because it's so peripheral and it's stuff that we can really hone in and manage. It's not outside of our capacity to. And even though I was going out every day and that neighbor wasn't coming out looking for me, I was still imagining that they were. And so there was a mismatch. So even though I did the energy work, the cutting the cords, the placing love there, again, every time I left, there was still within me an anticipation that I was going to have to deal with this stressful situation. And it wasn't only up until a couple weeks ago, as I knew that we've been building and we've been working on these topics, that I realized, like, whoa, I got to let that go. What is that? That's like the phantom shadow memory of something stressful that doesn't need to be inside of me, that doesn't need to walk with me. That pattern, that blueprint doesn't need to be with me every time I leave the house. That is causing underlying stress. So I hope you understand. We're going to have more examples. But just in that way, how tiny things left unmanaged, left unkept, that over time create leaks in our aura, leaks in our mental, emotional body. Stress runs the health of our body down, runs the health of our emotions and our mind down. Now, another example is if you have a family member that you get stressed out, there's that barbecue or that birthday or the Christmas or the whatever it is. I know for me, there was a family member, and I had this, and it was really hard and heavy, because while I'm a very community out there, I've got classes, I'm a teacher, I do workshops and all this stuff, the other part of me is totally the hermit. The hermit, I'm like, shut it down, lock it down, I'm writing my books, I'm creating, I'm working on my projects, I'm doing me, right? I'm doing me the way I want to do me. And unless you're invited over, I don't want a visitor. I just don't. And so, yet there was a family member who would just come by unannounced. And anyone who knows the creative process undisturbed is like manna from heaven, is like orgasmic life, is like, that's heaven on earth, is to have that experience. And this person would come by unannounced, and it would just crash the party that I was having with creation. And even though I had the conversation, right, because then we say, well, what do? You master your time and space. You create the correct conditions by speaking it so and saying, would you please do me a favor and text? Would you please do a favor and give me a call and make sure that connect with me, make sure I don't have a client here at that time, whatever it is. And so even with that level of communication, it got a little better, but I was still like stressed, feeling like I can't even be in my house doing what I want to do, getting into my creative mode, or even my meditation. So many times I've been sitting in meditation and it's like, come on. How far do I have to move? I don't have to move far away. Let's work on this communication even more. So let me think of a new way that I can speak to this person. What is important to me, so that they can learn the learning curve of me. They can learn how I wish to be treated. Now with that, it has gotten better over the years. And I see there's a lot of stopping and starting on this video. So I just pray that it's all smooth and running. Anyway, it's gotten better, but that's what I'm talking about. It's the underlying stress. If you've read my book, The Reiki Apprentice, which by the way, I am so very proud of this book. This is a really good book. And I know, it's tooting my own horn. An infinite amount of metaphysical energy tools that you can learn and use for yourself. And I am going to extract those tools and make a separate book called Teachings of the Scroll. But there's a whole part in this book, and we're going to get into victim, because being a victim cultivates stress. There's a whole part in the book where I'm living in New York. Back in the day, I never wore a bra. I never shaved my armpits or my legs. I had dreadlocks. I was a very free spirit. Yet, I did have pain from the past that still walked with me in the way that I psychically, energetically related to male energy, male sexual energy specifically. And the neighborhood where I lived at the time, now Washington Heights, I think, is all shoo-shoo, foo-foo, shoo-shoo. I remember the last time I was there, there were fancy little French cafes in places that you know, back when I lived there, which was, when was it? God, I'd have to look at the book. It's a long time ago. When was it? It was in the late 90s. It was in the late 90s. And it was a very, very different. Anyway, so the energy was very machismo on the streets, and it was a constant thing for me to deal with the male energy on the street and all of the forthcoming sexual innuendo, sexual crossing of towards me, to the point where I really thought, I mean, and I'll put this in a triple bubble of Christ's light, but in the past, there was like a stress and a fear that I was going to be raped, mugged, just like, I don't even know, over and over and over and over again, to the point where I used to do Kung Fu back in the day, and to the point where I bought, you might know it, they have these ninja bars. It's a keychain with spikes. So you hold the bar in your hand, so there's a pointy bit at the end for jabbing, and when you hold it in your fist, there's spikes, skinny spikes that come up through your knuckles. So you walk to your apartment like this, anyone messes with you, you've got your something at least, right? Which is crazy even to live like that. But that's how I lived. I was scared fucking shitless living in that neighborhood. But I loved the neighborhood, and I loved your apartment, and I loved my friends, and that whole thing was a whole new world. You read my book, you'll dig it, you'll get it. But the thing is that I had been bullied so much throughout my life, and then on the streets with these men, which is a huge part of all of my lessons and learning. I was a victim up until not too long ago. I would stand in anticipation and I would project. You see, I didn't understand this back then. And perhaps there's areas of your life that you understand this aspect, but you still don't, and you can overlay this blueprint on them. But I would sit there and I would project, and I would dread. For like 5 minutes before I left the house, I'd be like, oh God, I'd put that ninja thing stick in my hand. To only walk 3 blocks to the subway. I only had to go 3 blocks, yet 191st and St. Nick is where I lived back in the day. And all I would do is I'd sit there and I'd think about all the ways that I'd be picked on and bullied and fucked with, and that they'd look at my tits and, you know, make all these comments and all this stuff. Because number one, I didn't have a bra. I mean, I was wearing clothes, of course. But when you're a woman and you don't wear a bra, in an American as well, in a very machismo society, which I didn't realize, I was innocent, which is very kind of beautiful. But I was no longer living on the mountain. I was no longer backpacking around Europe barefoot. And in Europe, it's a very different thing with bodies and sex and nudity or just bralessness. And so for me as a woman, I felt safe. I felt a different level of safety being in the world and not of it, traveling, being who I was with my dreadlocks and hairy armpits and whatever. Whereas walking on the streets back in the day of New York in that way, especially in my old neighborhood, it was this really weird men, because they would on one hand be like, they'd be showing me that they were attracted or, you know, interested. And honestly, in a bubble of light, that male energy was really attracted to anything feminine. It wasn't just me, right? Anything female, I would say. So, and they would make it, hey, you know, make it very obvious. And so on one hand, it was like this warped thing because they would kind of be hitting on me. And on the other hand, they'd kind of be poking at me because they'd kind of be into you. But then at the same time, like, ew, you've got armpit hair. And so it was this really weird thing. God, phone's calling. I'll finish that. Oh, God. I was just saying your name. I was just like, oh, God. Do you mind when we do that, when we say, oh, God? No, God says no. God doesn't mind. I know, because there's, oh, I see someone just left a comment on the comment box. Yeah, I know. I was telling that whole story in New York. Okay, God wants me to finish telling the story with God on the phone. So basically the point is that I would spend 5 minutes just festering and projecting all of the awful things that would happen. And when I went onto the street, that's exactly what happened. The amount of stress through my anticipating that I thought I knew what was going to happen in a negative way caused so much stress, but also activated through me that frequency, that vibration. So that's what I got over years with more travel, heart opening, healing, those aspects of sexuality, of being a woman in the world, and all the other stuff that came with it from my youth as I learned, and those came to healing. And I still lived in that apartment. Well, the miracle is that then I realized, then I was able to say, wow, before I left the house, I used to co-create all this drama. And now I see how if I'm going to experience love, and back a love warrior, and I was, what I realized is I needed to extend love before I left the house, not paint a path of fear, but I needed to just take a moment and close my eyes and extend love out to all the men that I didn't even know who they were. Of course, some of them were regulars because it was in the hood, and so you'd see the same people. But let me take a moment and wash a pathway of love for myself to the subway and back. And let me courageously look every man that cross paths with en route on that 3-block path. Let me look them in the eye and place love there and say psychically, yo, I respect you. And I tell you, a whole new world. Talk about timeline shift, quantum timeline. And back then we didn't have these words. You know, we didn't have this. This is another part of our language of light. Quantum, you know, dimensions, timeline shifting. But that's what happened, is I shifted a timeline. That part of me was healed. I no longer carried that stress, that frequency, that vibration, and so my reality was different. Thank you for letting me finish, God. God wants me to read the comment. Okay, hold on one second. Let me put the glasses on. Lachlan, hey, blessings. Preempted self-safety. Yes, yes, right? Blessings, Lachlan. And I think you actually found me on Instagram, which I'm so grateful. I don't know, someone named Lachlan following. So if it's you, blessings. If it's a different Lachlan, I'm very, very grateful. So yes, God, hello. Okay, and as always, right, God is inviting us to be with this notion, because especially it pertains to what we teach here, what we share, is that God is the feeling realization of oneness. God says, I am not a body, I am not a person, yet I reside within all bodies and all people. That's beautiful. Ah, yes, okay. Here I was talking about, I had the dictaphone diary. So God is saying, remember that a part of that realization is understanding that we have a relationship with all people, all places, all things, food, drugs, the air we breathe, our family members, each of them individually and collectively. We have a relationship with who we were in the past, who we think we're going to be in the future, and also with the now moment. And it's where those thoughts become scattered and differentiated and not in a harmonic alignment, that stress is given rise to. Stress is given way to. The correct conditions, thank you, are created for stress to fester. Yet, when we consciously realign, reconfirm, as I did, right, with the projecting that I'm going to get killed, I'm going to get raped, I'm going to get mugged. And I know those are heavy words, and that's why they're in a triple bubble of Christ-like, because I don't wish that on myself or anyone. But I'm just being frank and candid with you that that's the depth of my fear. And you can imagine when you have that kind of fear, that is fucking stressful. I mean, I would come home and my heart, I'd be like, I made it home safe again tonight. It was like that level when I got home into the door. Because you still didn't know. You had to go up five things of stairs. And you know, the elevator doesn't always work in New York in those old apartments. So anyway, honey child. Okay, so what are we doing today, God? We're going to read, from the Mayan Oracle. I don't think we've ever done that. Well, I have no idea. But let's have a look. Okay. So the Mayan Oracle, by the way, this book is incredible, and it comes with cards. Ariel Spilsbury and Michael Briner. So God wants us to read a bit from Emish. Okay, so we're going to see. So it comes with cards, and you know, I've been using it. The book and the cards at the same time. If you're a regular with me and you do my tarots and stuff, you know that we use the Osho Zen Tarot regularly. But we also, pardon me one second, God, but we also, we've been guided to use the Voyager Tarot, right? To pull a card as an overview card. And all of those decks, including this Mayan Oracle, I all got them at the same time when I worked at the Bodhi Tree bookstore in West Hollywood back in the day. Back in the heyday of the day. So we're on Emish. So what are we supposed to read here, God? Oh, I see it. God's like, cast your eyes and you will know. And I look and there it is. I love that. Oh, side note. Yes, totally. I have to remember to, yes, I'll make sure and tell them. Okay. So God wants us to read. Do you want to stay on the phone with us? No. Okay. God's like, no, we're good. All right. God says blessings and namaste, everyone. You totally are quoting that from, that's like a social media post that I saw on Instagram. You're hilarious. God's all, calm is a super. So we're going today, right? Moving from stress into peace. Okay, well, thank you. Namaste, dear. Blessings. God says, hi and bye, and blessings among us. So very interesting. We're going to read a couple paragraphs from Imish in the Mayan Oracle book. Is the feeling realization of oneness? Is the feeling realization of love and only love without an opposite? Remember, we got into this at the end of last week's 4DT. I know it was a long one, but we got into it as we were going into the topic that we're discussing today, right? With stress, with anticipation and expectation. Love and only love. Moving from binary to trinary, where there's not just the choice of good and bad, right? Where we're not just pivoting between love and fear, but we get to the point where the tipping point shifts so far over into the place of love that you start realizing that you can choose love and only love, or it can be good and it can even get better. You can keep choosing through a whole new spectrum, a whole new conversation, a whole new language of love and of light. Hey, good morning, Tammy. Blessings, welcome. Where you can have that conversation and have those interactions where it's love and only love versus love versus fear. And it might make sense and it might be like, wait, what is she saying? Because it is a new learning curve. It's a new synaptic way of connecting whereby we're used to, we have taught, we have learned to make choices from a dualistic, polarized 3D realm, which is the world we live in. That I'm in a body, that time is real, that money's real, that lack and scarcity are real. So we've got to choose either something good or something bad. We move into the place of love and only love, not being a person, but a feeling realization exists, and where the choices are now no longer pivoting, well, let's make a good list and a bad list. What's the positives and what's the negatives? But where your list, honey child, is just good, and getting better, and even like, wow, I never even thought about that. Yes, because we've been so trained and so conditioned and used to only having two ways of seeing things, light or dark, good or bad, left or right, yes or no, on or off, binary systems, the matrix, right, the grid as we call it here in the way that I teach, or the trinary, which is the middle path, the other, the infinite, eternal possibilities of all things good, beautiful, bright, healthy, blessed, and blissed. Ah, you recorded with your phone. Okay, so we're going to read. We're going to read now, Lachlan. So here we go. So the God phone just called and wants us to read a couple paragraphs from Imish in the Mayan Oracle book. The entire universe is made of love. Give and receive. If you are not fully receiving the gifts offered by the universe, give freely and unconditionally without attachment to how your gift is received. Dip into the deep well of self and fill your cup with sweet waters. Offer this gift unconditionally. Trust in the situation at hand. I think that's a big one. The first couple lines and that second line. The entire universe is made up of love. Give and receive. If you are not fully receiving the gifts offered by the universe, you can short circuit. You can short circuit because the universe is alive, like our environment, and responds to our perception of it. If we are not in a harmonious our environment, and it's tough, right? It's one thing when you know your environment and you can kind of control it, and it's like your room or your house. And then you go out and you're like, you got to like control, learn how to manage and master your energy, your mind, and your word. And this speaks to that there, what I want to also talk about is that there's this natural state of our being, this homeostasis. When we are relaxed, when we're centered, when you can see the bigger picture, because you know, when we stress, all of a sudden our ability to see that spectrum, right, that trinary where all good possibilities exist, but when all of a sudden we stress, our energy shrinks, our fear shrinks, our ability, our perceptual muscles, our ability to see a broadened horizon. When we relax, all of a sudden the blinders come off and you're like, you can see things in a different way, right? You can see more than perhaps you had when you were stressed. That's why people say, well, don't make that phone call, sleep on it, you know, meditate on it, take a moment, take a step back. You know, maybe you don't have all the information yet, or because you're kind of stressed in it, take a step back and you'll see things differently. If you are not fully receiving the gifts offered by the universe, you can short circuit. So in that homeostasis of your beautiful perfection, the beautiful blueprint of divine mastery and perfect health and happiness that you are, under the stress, under the pain, the things that need healing, etc., all perfect. You are already living your dharma. You are already in your truth. Maybe you're just not completely aware of it yet. And that's what we're doing here, right? With all the teachings that we share, is we're like, oh, we keep bumping into these parts of ourselves that are like, oh, I didn't realize that part of myself that I really want to be here in the center of my heart, I kind of put way over there. Let me heal this or create the correct conditions so that I can really be in my power, in my true knowing. And so with that, each of our blueprints is fully calibrated for us to be that infinite, eternal, in a body yet not bound by a body, in the world yet not bound by the world, in the world and not of it version of ourselves. And when we when we block those gifts of the universe, which are those gifts that you have innately, the gifts that you have been born with, that you know that you're good at, what comes natural to you. And it doesn't have to be saving the world, you know, curing cancer. It's just like, it could be like, I'm really good at growing a rose bush. I'm really good at making pancakes. I'm a good listener. You know, I give good hugs, whatever it is. We all have aspects of ourselves that things come naturally to us. And that's where our blueprint is allowed to light up. And what I'm taking from this first line is that when we open ourselves and we say, yes, I am that I am, bring it on. I am ready and willing to house and harness and embody all the gifts that I am, dear God, dear oneness of this universe. Then there's flow. There's superpowers activating. You're jumping a timeline. You're quantum shifting to a different dimension. Because the other dimension then would be, I'm afraid, I see, you know, fear of success, fear of being seen, fear of others judging us, right? If you really know you're a bumblebee, but you're like, I'll just act like a fly. I don't even, do flies do that? No, that's a cat. Then you're just going to be buzzing around like a fly until you realize that you're a beautiful bumblebee and you own it. And even in this week's 4D Trinity, or no, in this week's tarot, there's a snip that I'm going to post. You know, when you follow me on Instagram, I take a handful of 1-minute clips from our weekly tarot, our highlights, and I post them over the week on the Instagram. And there's one that I haven't posted yet, but I will do it later. And it speaks to that shift that we've been going through, right? From the caterpillar to the butterfly. And it's hilarious because it speaks to, like, the butterfly is not looking to do things in the same way the caterpillar is. You know, the butterfly has a responsibility to be a butterfly. And like this, if you're not fully receiving the gifts offered by the universe, dear butterfly, if you're not saying, I'm a butterfly, bring it on, and showing up in that butterfly this of yours, whatever that is for you, then you're not fully receiving the gifts. When you know, it's one thing when you don't know your gifts and you're kind of still figuring it out, you're deep in your healing path, but when you've turned in that corner and you've come into a greater access point of your invited to like embody and live that and quest, right? Do that. How would you live that path of truth within you? When you say, yes, please help me, angels, guides, whatever it is that you call on, your ascended masters, etc., then yes, no stress. You're saying, I allow. It's when we block that, we resist those things that we know are in our nature, that are our true gifts and inherent talents and abilities, especially as you may be guided to share and you don't. That's when we can short circuit. And that's what this is saying. It's trust in the situation at hand, you know, and so often stress is caused by not trusting. Our ability to develop trust, remember, like God just said, calm is a superpower. It really, really is, because calm is in the binary is opposite of stress. You've been around stressful people before, and maybe you've been the calm one, and you can see, it's like being a sober person around a bunch of drunk people. You're like, ooh, it's like the difference, right? You don't have to judge it, but it's like, it's obvious. And likely so, when you're calm and everyone's like, ah, it's obvious, like it's a different frequency. And so trusting in the situation at hand is that bridge that connects us to that superpower of calm. And remember, it's interesting that God's having us read this. I really didn't know what we were going to read today. That trust, when we talk about the energy body, and I know it's in 4DTs, and I am actually in the process. I am writing a book, another book right now, breaking all this down. But we know, right? We're aware of the 7 traditional chakras, and we've broken this down before. I'll see if I can find which 4DT it is and put the little link up in the corner. But from the 3rd chakra to the heart is the trust bridge. There's a bridge of energy from your 3rd chakra to your heart chakra that's trusting. We're moving away from those lower chakras. Oh, we're still using them. Oh, we are in a body. Oh, we are enjoying our sensual nature. Oh, we've overcome being a victim. We are healed to the degree where now we can enjoy this body. We can love it as we've never loved it before. We can access powers within it. We can, in a grounded, detached way, harmonize with our psychic, intuitive abilities without being afraid of it. You know, we can come into the fullness of self-mastery in this space and time, yet expanded to the degree where we are beyond space and time, but we get to consciously work within the constructs of space and time to create the correct conditions for that sustained conscious perception of love, self-mastery, that being the practice. Trusting in the situation at hand. So this goes back to, remember, I've quoted him before, Dave Evans. He's an evangelical preacher. I listen to everyone. God stations on the, I go all the stations on the radio. I listen to them all, all that stuff. And I take what resonates. So anyway, Dave Evans, I know I've talked about him before. The famous quote that I always quote him, faith is acting like God is telling the truth. And remember, I'm not trying to get religious on you. There's no God that I believe up in the sky with the beard and the rocking chair, damning some people and blessing others. No. It's a feeling realization of oneness. It's realizing that love is the truth. Love and only love is the truth. And that's 4th dimension. That's the good versus the evil, but it's like the good always wins. And it's like, even, faith, acting like God is telling the truth, because faith in the energetic schism of what we teach here, what I teach is that here's the faith, here's the trust bridge from the 3rd chakra to the heart, but from the heart, the bridge that goes through the throat chakra, through the 3rd eye, and up through the crown is the faith line. Faith requires for us to go beyond believing, because belief is still kind of in the mind. We could change our mind, could be rooted in fear. It's not firm like faith. Faith is believing without seeing. Faith is knowing without seeing. Faith is having had the experience, even if for a split second, that experience of peace, that experience of healing, that experience of a miracle, that experience of love, to know that it is a truth and that it can happen again. To happen again and again and again and again and again is discerned by my ability to relax and trust the situation at hand, no matter what's going on. What's the best thing that can happen? Stop asking what's the worst thing that can happen. Just stop. Oh my God, this is totally fucked up. What's the best thing that can happen, universe? I'm telling you, you got to kind of go like, let me just like get in here and play with this energy, even if stuff's looking like weird and kooky. Universe, God, higher self, my angels, what's the best thing that can happen here? And they will. Often we are stuck asking, quote, the wrong kind of questions. And so getting these cock-blocking kind of like disruptive answers, keep stubbing our toe, keep bumping into the same wall, so to speak, versus shifting it and asking a different kind of a question to create a different kind of a result. So Lachlan, Manipura is important right now. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I would love for you to give us a little line of what Manipura is for those viewers watching. Lachlan and I, what Manipura is, the way that you would define it. So there's a second paragraph. It's small. Primal trust, primal trust, baby. Primal trust. So it's, on one hand, sure, an airy-fairy, fluffy-puffy, like, ooh, the clouds and the angels, like, absolutely. So, a 3D in your body, sweating bullets. Is that tiger going to eat me? No, that tiger's not going to eat me kind of trust. It's being in that situation with the tiger in the wild. And as Dave Evans says, having faith that what God says is the truth. If God says, you get the download from your higher self, remember, which is just like the voice for God, the higher self or the Holy Spirit, I believe are interchangeable. They're like the same being or entity or aspect, if you will. And it's just the voice for God. And if you're in the jungle and there's the tiger and you're like, oh my God, and you do that quick little prayer and you're like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And if God's like, you're going to be cool, you just follow my instructions and you'll get out alive. You got to trust that. That's primal trust. Okay, so let's read. Thank you for writing, Lachlan. So let's read this. Manipura is a sanctuary within your higher self that you have access to at all times. By connecting to that meridian line, the access to multidimensional self begins. This process is known as awakening. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a sanctuary. It is. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Lachlan. I really appreciate that. That's juicy. That's important, right? For everyone to just like have these different ways to think about things and the different languages of it. It really is a sanctuary where you can be replenished, and it is a different track. That aspect, that sacred space, that divine communion with your higher self, with God, with oneness, with the divinity of all. You are replenished, you're nourished, you're fortified and sustained there. And that's heaven on earth. That's our 4D consciousness. That's our Christ consciousness. That's the second coming in you, in me, in we. Worked out all the pain and all this stuff that I guess why we come here. No, we come here for a lot of different reasons, all of us. But right, so there's a theme though in a collective where, you know, we come, we get kicked around, beaten up, abused, bruised, whatever it is. Eventually, there's a continuum, a part of us, a collective of us that like learn how to alchemate the pain from the past into power. and learn how to assimilate, digest it, process it, but eventually to get over it. So it's not still like this heavy baggage walking with us wherever we go. And perhaps to get over it to such a degree that we can bless it and look at those people, those situations as teachers, as medicine, and we can say thank you. And then we can use that awareness, that awakening, to serve our community, serve our family, our friends, or perhaps integrate it into the work, right, that you share in this world. So I digress, but it's all connected, right? So primal trust means making choices moment by moment with no guarantees. You see, this is the thing as well. We get stuck in the stress by needing to know the outcome of things versus that moment to moment trust, primal trust will always is unfolding in my life, in my mind, on my tongue. I am in tune with the truth of my heart, and I listen and I honor it. And so it is. It always leads me to divine communion with my higher self, with the higher self of the collective, as we bridge heaven on earth. So, and I, you know me. I mean, I'm not. I know I get feisty, I get fiery because I love what I do. Yet I'm never judging you. I'm never judging anyone. And even though in my practice as a facilitator, a teacher, sharing healing and all this stuff, I generally will never say, you need to do this. Unless someone says, what do I need to do? Then we got to break it down. Yeah, what I will say is that if you know you're driving yourself crazy with the stress, and you're like, what do I need to do? Right? First thing, I mean, besides, okay, take a breath, pull your plugs, these things, right? But it would be like, what can you start letting go? What can you start letting go of controlling, of thinking you need to control the outcome, of thinking, of being attached to certain ways that things are going to show up in your life? Can you cut the cords, let it go for the highest good, place love in the space in between, and let the quantum organizer, let love, the wisdom, the nature, the sacred geometry that love is, let that help to create the correct circumstances and conditions. Because when we let go, and I know there's this divine balance, and that's a whole other 4DT, and we're gonna keep going because I have a lot of stuff to cover here. But there's that divine balance. And I've been a Course in Miracles student for 4 years now, and everything is like, you just do what God says, and it's a fucking trip. I got the F word on the tip of my tongue today. I apologize. But it is what it is for today, right? But it's that thing where you're just totally surrendering. You're just like, where would you have me go, dear God? What would you have me do? To that higher power, I'm a channel, just channeling wherever I go, whatever I do. And that's a big one, right? And then there's like this other point where it's like, you're like, okay, I have this connection, I have this oneness. I know we're all one. I know how to hear the voice for God. I know how to honor it with reverence, allow my higher self to guide my moves. And then there's like this arc of like, okay, so now that I know this oneness, let me keep going back into the individual. But it's not the individual who thinks that they're separate. It's the individual who knows we're all connected. And let me play with creation now. Now let me play from this place. So anyway, I digress. But so there's a different strata there. It means not trying to control the outcomes in your life. We were just saying that. So trust your steering mechanism of heart knowing. Trust the transformational processes that are at work in your evolution. So thank you, God phone, for having us read that. Very pertinent and very connected to what we were talking about. Now, I do have notes. So stress versus peace. And it's like such the cliche thing, but nature. mean, talk about sensual. Nature's sexy. I don't know. I'm a Taurus. So, you know, being barefoot, getting dirt in my hands and leaves in my hair and, you know, all that. I'm all into it. For me to appreciate that aspect. There's a tarot reader, an astrologer on YouTube called Gregory Scott, who I often watch. He's from England. And he said something, and I wrote it down as it pertains to this today. And he was just talking about this is perfect. And he's just speaking, and just the words, just allow the words to wash over you. Nature, the breeze, wind, water, leaves, and flames. Light, rays of light. Barefoot, walk, barefoot. The importance of connecting with the earth and grounding. And that's all he said. And I just was like, thank you. And it's so true. So, what causes stress? We're going to start to use our board. What causes stress? And I'm going to welcome you. I will definitely be writing things down, but I'm going to welcome you as you're available. I know some of you put this on, turn it up, and you do your thing in the house. You're cleaning or you're working away. If you have a moment and you can contribute, you want to join in. So what causes stress? What causes stress? We're going to think about very 3D things here, right? So I'm going to get us started. Lack. The cause of stress is the belief in lack consciousness. Lack. In my experience, what can cause stress is a lack of time. When we think time is real, and sometimes it is very real. It feels very real. And when there's a seeming lack of time, a perceived lack of time, then the blood pressure can go. Outcome going to be, I have to try to manage and control this. And granted, there is a degree where, yes, let me place love there. Let me manage it. Let me direct it. Yet release, control, relinquish. Again, that divine, the final outcome. And there's never a final outcome, right? But the continuing unfolding of the outcomes for the highest to be gifted into the trinary version of expansive possibilities. So what causes stress? That perception of a lack of time. How about a lack of money? How about being in a relationship that is harmful? A relationship that you know has been over. I'm just going to put a bad relationship. That you know has been over for some time, yet you are still in it. That would cause a lot of stress. To be with a partner, with a lover, with someone that you know deep in your heart you're over, done with, that it has served its time, or to be with a partner that really treats you mean, that is unkind. Speaking of that, unkindness causes stress. Because we are this perfect divine blueprint and at our homeostasis, that place of like full relaxation where Our ability to see the full expanse of possibilities from a relaxed place is allowed to activate. We can, from that calm place, extend through kindness. When we are not believing that everything is going to work out perfectly, when we think that we need to control the way it comes about, how it happens, etc., 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 that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of stress on ourselves. So I'm going to write unkindness. And I know I had a little thing here that I wrote about it. When we are mean, we hold the stress vibe of mean. So we are tempted to react versus respond. Well, this leads to stress. Why? Because it goes against the grain of your true nature. It goes against the grain. Again, if your true nature is love, if you really believe that your true nature is love, and you're working on that, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a yogi, you don't have a name, a title that you give yourself, you're just on your spiritual path, whatever it is. And if you really want to work, you're a kinder person, not reacting and being so mean, right? That's work. That's a lot of work. And you start to go from being unconscious of just snapping at people, but when you start to look at it, you start to realize, like, whoa, when I go into mean mode, when I start complaining, judging, and I don't really like this word, but you'll know what I mean, bitching, right? About others and the situations, you know, all that crabby energy that really becomes so, it becomes so not a part of your reality at a certain point that you even forget that that stuff exists. And then you bump into people who have that and you're like, oh, that thing. Remember that. You don't have to judge it. You're just like, oh yeah, that stress thing. That control thing. Whoa. Okay. All right. Our nature is love, is to be relaxed, is to be healed, is to be a master of your time and space. And so, and our nature is, through being love, is to be kind towards ourselves and others. When we beat ourselves up, when we beat others up through unkindness, we create stress in our bodies, in our minds, in our emotions, because we're going against the natural grain of the truth of you, of the truth of me, of the truth of we. And while I know it can be a high, you think about movies where the bad guy's like, right, and they get like a hit of like juice from being mean, right? Yeah, you'll get a spritz, but that's your adrenal glands. That's the cortisol. That's the stress hormone. You see, and we learn to live on that level. We learn over time, or we can learn how to acclimate and live with stress. I mean, then sometimes we have to survive. That's the only way we'll survive. We've been through trauma or violence in our past. We've been hurt physically, emotionally, mentally, or all of the above. And so there's like, yeah, you got to just hunker down and get through that. Survival. Yet eventually there comes the place where you can start to unfurl your petals and start to heal these different aspects of self and relax and learn to know peace again, learn to know who you are without all the distraction of all that stuff tugging at you. And this is the path of peace. This is the path where you're moving out of the stress. Remember, like I was telling you at the beginning, all those things, and we all have them to whatever degrees, all the things that we project, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's, you know, men and their sexual energy out in the world, whatever the things that you have projections and judgments and issues about inside and how you project them on the outside that are not in fluid alignment with the truth of you, with the grace of you, with the authentic mastery of your God self, of your higher self that you are, of the self, the version of yourself with the capital S versus the version of you with the small s. When we do things that are not in harmonic alignment with that, We create the conditions for stress to activate and be harbored in the body. And unkindness is a part of that. Every time we're mean, every time we react, we respond, that's vibration. There's a chemical reaction in your body when you respond. And you're a bitch. You respond. Someone cuts you off and you're like, beep, beep, you bugger. You know, like that's you're setting off the cortisol in your body from your adrenal gland. It goes really fast around the car. You didn't know it was there. You get a rush and you're like, oh my God. Woo. And you get that little spritz. And you're like, and it might even take 5 to 10, 20 seconds to like, come down again and to calm down, to come back into that calm. Can you imagine though, if you're just constantly on the trajectory of meanness and snapping and finding something wrong about everything, everywhere, everyone, judging, picking, poking, nagging, complaining. I mean, come on, right? That's like heavy energy. And all of that stuff that we are seemingly talking about that's out there, we're just creating that because of the tip of our tongue and how we're reacting, responding to what it is that we think that we're seeing is having an absolute instinctive effect in our body. So if I'm perceiving stress, things that I can't control, that I think I need to control, if this person's wrong, you're driving too fast, you're going too slow, this line at the blank bank is too long, you know, whatever it is, I mean, my God. We're creating the correct conditions for ill health, for stress. And stress is at the root of all physical ailments. All physical ailments. All physical ailments. All physical ailments. How many times can I say this? I'm not going to spend the whole rest of the show saying it. Yet, it's very, very important that we get to know who we are in that relaxed state and relax there and become adapted in this relationship with the self in this new way. And perhaps we've known who we are. And that's, again, been our survival, is to react and respond. And because maybe we're afraid, of love. And that's the only way we know how to respond, is to deflect, is to block, is to, instead of letting it in, is to keep creating those blockages so that love can't come in. Because if it comes in, I'm gonna have to change. And even though you want to change, but your tar body's like, oh, hell no. And so anyway, the tug of war. And we've done 4DTs on the tar body, and there's stuff I want to get to here. So we're going to keep going. Oh, blessings, Venus in the first. Thank you for joining. So withholding love. Let's write it down. Withholding love. And that's withholding love from ourselves and withholding love from one another. There's a natural blueprint, again, that you are as a body, as an energy being in this universe. That's why we do our Reiki, our yoga, our acupuncture, or our acupressure, our massage, our grounding, bare feet in the nature, swimming in the ocean, whatever all these things are, hugging trees. Because the energy is within us and all around, this life force, the prana, the chi, all the names we can give it. And all we're getting the system, moving from any stress levels, mind, body, emotions, and shifting into peace. And from that place, the body, the mind, the emotions can reset, recalibrate, and we can start to know who we are. So again, learning who we are, cultivating this new relationship with the self. Withholding love is such a big one. If love is all there is, and love is the truth, yet we're withholding love, we're not letting it in, we're not letting it out. I know I love you, but I can't show it. I know you love me, but I can't let it in, right? We're blocking the flow. When ultimately we go to acupuncture, we go to yoga. Have you ever been to yoga? And then at the end in Savasana, like you bawl your eyes out. It's like, honey, all those channels flushed open. That was your acupressure, your acupuncture session, you know, or your Reiki. Same thing, like anything where there's a shift, state of consciousness. It creates the correct conditions on all the multidimensional level of your being for that recalibration. And all of a sudden, squeaky, squeaky. And you go from this to whole new world, right? Which is different timelines. Now all of a sudden, you're existing and operating in a whole different way, from a whole different aspect that is still you, still true to you, but that is more aligned with the truth of you because it is grounded in love. So when we withhold love, when we're being unkind, being unkind is withholding love. When we this causes stress in our bodies, in our minds, in our emotions. When you hold on to unforgiveness, that causes stress too. What else? What causes stress? And we're not going to spend too long here making like a million. We're going to just talk about what causes stress. We're going to learn how to work with this frequency and alchemate it and transform it. But it's very important because often we get used to stress. We're like, what's up, stress? Come on in. Let me move over. Have a seat on the couch right next to me. You want something to eat? We get used to it. Start feeding it, giving it a name. Becomes a buddy. Make sure you put your seatbelt on, stress. You know, it's like it becomes a thing that's like regular in our life. Then it becomes evident in our health. Starts to pop out as physical ailments. And now there's nothing wrong. This is what we do here. This is how we process. It's not like you're supposed to be this perfect, shiny angel being and never have an injury, never have, you know, a physical ailment. No. We're becoming more conscious and aware of how the mind, the body, the emotions are all connected and how they calibrate to either create the correct conditions for peace, for health, for greater love, or not. And so we're just bringing ourselves back because we can forget. We can forget that when we're mean, we're actually saying yes to stress. Your vibration. I mean, and you've met, and again, we're not judging. It's just, this is just how the world is. Like, you've met mean people. There's a vibe, yo. There's a vibe. You've met peaceful, kind people. There's a vibe. You can imagine health, the emotional, the mental, the physical health of one that maintains the trajectory of stress, of fear, of lack, of control, versus someone who's like, it's all good. I have faith. What's the best thing that can happen? You know, it's like very different frequency, right? So let's write a few more. We have time, money, bad relationships, unkindness, withholding love. Make that closer. Withholding love, unforgiveness, your health, right? Health issues can cause stress. The past can cause stress. The future. The future can cause stress, right? When you think you have to have it all figured out. The past can cause stress when we haven't figured it out. And there is like a code, right? A puzzle piece, like our past. If you have not resolved the pain of your past, I invite you to explore it. Even if it's very, very painful, you'll know when it's time for you, but take that step, take that leap, take that courageous move into that realm when you know, when your higher self is like, it's time to start going there and feeling those feelings and start your forgiveness practice or whatever it is. And it's hard and it's heavy. And there's stuff there that sometimes we don't want to feel again or ever again. Yet this is how we do it. We go back in. We go through it. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. It can be instantaneous. You can completely forget everything, have no memory of the past at all, not walk with the cellular memory of it, and have a completely different continuum. So, for a majority of the collective in the work that I've shared over almost 20 years, the way out is to go back in. The way to the land of the free is to go back in, to feel it all, to come to terms with your feelings, with what is hidden in there. Why? Why does it still hurt you? Why does it make you react in a mean way? Why does it make you withhold love? Why can't you forgive? What's there? Is to do all that in there, in the dark, in the tars, so that the tars can get dissolved, the tar body being the toxic twin of your light body, so that we can dissolve that gunky, stunky, funky, junky stuff. Let that be dispersed and released so that the truth of you that's always here, the light body, is given right of way. And so we're learning how to manage, how to navigate all of these aspects. Working with that stuff of the past is such a powerful medicine. And it's here for a reason. I'll tell you, the whole, again, if you've read my book, where is it? The Reiki Apprentice. It's a memoir. There's a few reviews on Amazon you can read. It's on Kindle or paperback. And you go through, there's 3 books in one. Book 1, book 2, book 3. And in book 1, you're with me as a child. And like the crazy sexual, the already manipulation, the physical sexual abuse stuff, and just like the weird stuff, the bullying, my weight as a child. So you get this like insight, because we all have this to whatever degree, whether it was in your childhood or in your teenagehood or last week, the things that have happened along our lives that have marked us as negative, as pain, as hurt, and how we walk with those things in the past, and how those things, when we walk with them, still color the filters through how we see everything and how we react, again, how we respond, whether I'm going to be, focusing that I need to walk around New York City with my ninja, thing in case I need to punch someone. I can't even imagine punching someone in the face with those spikes and that thing. I mean, jab, jab. It's like, I'm so like, not into that. Back in the day, I had my adrenaline. I was like ready. I had my kung fu. Woo, look out. And I was angry back then too. So triple threat, yo. But that's so stressful. Anyway, I detour. We take a detour. You go through getting to know all the stuff, right? The baggage. And then 2/3 of the book is an intimate ride with me as I apprenticed for 3 years with my grand, who's not just a Reiki master. She's a grand Reiki master. According to her story, she learned Reiki with the Dalai Lama. She was also a trans-channel healer, and she channeled metaphysics and metaphysical energy tools, which a lot of that I teach now. So you will be connecting with a lot of that information as you share in these teachings with this community. And it's a wild thing, but the point is that you, through the story, you get to see if you need alchemating again of the pain to power, of how long I walked as a victim in the world, and I didn't even know it. Again, unconscious. The world was out to get me, man, in a lot of different ways. The world, the government, the man, the corporations, I mean, you name it. It was out to get me. And that's how I lived. And I know I'm laughing now. If you're in that and that's like your reality thing, I honor that. I dig it. I get it. Yet there is another way. That's the trinary, this other way to see things that is love and only love. And I know there's a comment here. I'm going to read that just in 1 second. I did want to write down, oh, victim. Let me write down victim. Because that's a big one. Victim. So let me read this. Lachlan says, identifying where you have stress and often it is life's impression on us or the support we accept within ourselves before it becomes pain is to address it. I absolutely agree, Lachlan. And thank you for that. And I do feel though, this is where we're at though, right? Is that we're becoming, we're moving out of the dark from like, why is it happening to me? Right? Victim. Why? You know, all this always happens to me, right? We're moving out of that from like, okay, wait, I see a pattern here. In my meditation, I noticed that I keep attracting those kinds of relationships. I keep attracting those situations when it comes to my finances and business dealings, or I keep attracting, you know, whatever it is. So let me, and this is causing stress in my life because I can't just relax into knowing I'm honoring the fullness. So how do I work with this? Addressing it, right? So we get to, as we consciously step into self-mastery, perception of love, that's going to get difficult to hold that really sincerely, like really like Jedi, like unfuckable with, to really hold that frequency without fear. That's the calm superpower that God, on the God phone this morning, I believe was talking about. It's the anchoring to such a degree in that faith, that beyond faith of just, you are just knowing, and even beyond knowing, because we are really knowing that everything is mind, but we learn that beyond the mind and what is ultimately before and after and always is love. And so absolutely, we learn to not just be a victim and be like, why is this happening to me? Why does my heart palpitate when I drink this coffee all the time? God, it gets me so stressed out. Can I get another double, a cappuccino, espresso, frappuccino, you know, it's like we're unconsciously putting the caffeine in. Meanwhile, we're getting twitches and itches and rashes and we're wondering why. It's like, that's what I'm talking about, is we're moving from being unconscious to like, oh, when I drink the double, triple, quadruple, frappuccino, cappuccino, espresso, I get that twitchy thing in my eye. Oh, it makes my heart rate ramp up. Oh, it makes me feel stressed. Let me pay attention to this. It's these little things in our day-to-day that we start to recognize. Like I even recognized that I have to stop eating onions, honey child. That causes stress in my body. My digestive system is like, there's certain places and times and how much it's cooked or what it's in that I can kind of get away with it and my body can break it down. But generally I'm like, no onion zone. This body is a no onion zone. And then my body's like all happy, you know, operating at its fullest, because it doesn't have to be like, oh, we have to break down and digest these things. And believe me, I've done enzymes. I've tried it all over the years. But that's, again, another thing. In New York, where I lived for 7 years, and I did my yoga teacher training way back in the day, 2001. If you remember, Baba Yoga on Avenue C and 6. It's not there anymore. Years and years ago. But I remember our teacher was a cool person, Peter Rizzo. Cool and interesting for many things. One thing, which I'll point out, which I know Will, if you're still with us and listening, is that he would always affirm over his class, like at the beginning or by the end of every yoga class he taught, he would always affirm, only nice students come to my class. And you were like, you know, and now looking back, I'm like, such a Jedi move, right? Just like laying that blanket affirmation over his yoga studio and over his classes specifically. Only nice students. The nicest students come to my class. Like, that's pretty cool, right? Besides that, though, I remember one day we're in class and there's a gal yoga mat next to me. And if you know yoga at all, triangle pose, right? we're doing triangle pose, and I could see, because I have my front to this lady's back, that her leg in the front was shaky, 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 shaky. And I know that feeling. There's certain yoga poses where you're like, oh my God, right? And some days are just like that. And I was like, oh wow, she's got the shake. Okay, I dig that. But he comes around and he goes, what's the shaking? He's like, why are you shaking? You're stronger than this. This is the easy pose. You should not be shaking here. He's like, you drank caffeine, didn't you? And I'm like, I'm in the triangle. I'm like listening, watching all this. And she's like, yeah, I had that second cup and I knew I didn't need it. And he's like, yeah, you don't. It's interfering with your practice. And so it was like this, for me, just being an observer of that, where it's like, again, that balance. She knew she was okay with 1 cup of coffee to go off and do her yoga and still have her peace. But she did the second cup of coffee, goes in, and she's like so much caffeine in her body. And then I was like watching, and I was like, oh, like everything was like legit, you know, like too much caffeine in your bloodstream. And it was a very interesting thing, because I was like, oh, I could see stress. I could see her body like stressing to try to calm down while there's this like whoosh of caffeine in her. So, you know, it's this crisscross. It's like, I think we do these things to ourselves, and we're learning how to consciously be like, oh, no onions. Oh, 1 cup of coffee will do it. Oh, you know, especially if I'm going to yoga and I know I get shaky, jittery, and it kind of, it gets me anxious. Big thing is, because it's happened before, when we think about stress in the present moment, and again, a lot of these aspects, like I was saying, because I had that constant experience, also, I was weird thing in New York, which all that stuff is in this book. The whole trajectory. I'm standing in the apartment in New York, and I'm projecting and judging, laying out that pathway of devastation ahead of me, projecting all the men that are going to poke at me, all the men that are going to bully me, that are going to inappropriately sexually, you know, try to fondle me or spit on me, which they did, all of that stuff. Be hit or mugged or raped, or like all that crazy, and it's all in a bubble of Christ light here. Stress. And because it had happened before, I was anticipating it to happen again. So this brings us into anticipation, expectation. Anticipation is a tricky one, right? And I just have 4 or 5 little slides. We're going to wrap up because I have to meet someone in a little while. But, you know, when I say wrap up, we probably have a good 30 minutes max to go. And someone else just dropped on. Let's see. Oh, blessings, Lachlan. Yes. Thank you, too. I'm very grateful for you hopping on and commenting, and everything that you share is very beautiful and very aligned with what we share. So thank you for all of your contribution. So we do have about 20, maybe 30 more minutes to go. And it's that anticipating, recognizing that just because it happened in the past, right, we somehow it's going to happen again the same way. And remember at the very, very beginning when I started this, it's a tricky thing, right? Because I told you the story about the neighbor who would every time I left the house, they would come out of their house, and and at first it was fine because they'd be chatting and they'd be chatting and they'd be chatting and it was more about me listening than talking to them. It wasn't a conversation. It was about them talking and me listening, and they're elderly, and I was okay with that. But then it kept happening, and then I was like, are they going to be out there? Can I run to my car and I don't have to deal with like, I gotta go. I can't, you know, and this whole thing. And that caused stress, but I was also sitting here realizing it. And then remember, I cut the cords, I placed love. Every time I went out, they weren't coming out looking for me anymore. It was like a different timeline shift. Though, what I realized is I still had a stress every time I left the house, which is a lot every day, more than once sometimes, to go in and out, that I would have this reaction within myself. And so it's like being mindful of where we've threaded those synapses and anticipating the worst because of what had happened in the past, versus training our minds, training ourselves to expect the Most High. And expecting the Most High is giving it up, is knowing that even if she comes out and tries to chat and whatever, I don't have to project or judge or have anything about it at all. I can just be like, I could flow. I could trust and I can flow, and I can still send love and wave and be like, I gotta go, beep, beep, bye. You know, like I don't have to get all riled up inside. I can change. And so those things need to sync up though, right? Those aspects of like, let me disconnect, place love there, know that there's a thing here that I'm getting myself stressed about, and then let me really, really, really surrender it. Give it to God, give it to Holy Spirit. Like if it's a real big one, you know, give it away, write the letter, burn it, whatever you need to do, forgive them, whatever. And allow that sacred space then to be made, and expect a new reality. Expect, again, Dave Evans, faith is acting like God is telling the truth. And what is God telling the truth about? That love is the truth. And what is love? It is the Most High, beautiful, divine experience of anything, everywhere, all the time. If we allow it, if we allow ourselves, right, to let go and to surrender to that. And that's what we keep coming back to. So we know, or perhaps we're learning, that anticipation can be a good thing, because remember we talked about this a little bit last week. When you anticipate getting sexy with someone, ooh, that you've had the hots for, I mean, right? That's like a whole anticipation. Or you're really, really hungry. Like, you know, the other night I celebrated a birthday with a friend, and I was craving mashed potatoes, and I didn't eat mashed potatoes since last Thanksgiving or something. And they ordered this appetizer that was a portobello mushroom on this little flat thing of like a little bed of mashed potatoes with sauce and the thing. And I was like, and why am I telling you? Why am I even telling you this about the mashed potatoes? Expectation. Oh my God, how silly. I don't know. It'll come back. I don't know why I was telling you about the mashed potatoes. Oh, they were really darn good though. It'll come back or it won't. We'll see. We need to keep moving though. Oh, and yes, food. Thank you. That's what it was. Anticipating. Like I knew I was going to go to this fancy restaurant and meet my friend and have a little drink and do a little birthday thing. And I was like, oh my God, because I'm used to doing my house thing when it comes to food. Very picky, very, very picky eater. But this restaurant, I'm like, ooh, I know their menu, and I'm like, ooh. And so I was anticipating all these things, and ooh, mashed potato, and then the mashed potato happened, and I'm ooh. And so anyway, anticipation, right, is a tricky thing because it can almost go both ways, but that's where it's binary, you see. Anticipation over hot sex or a hot dog or a hot cup of cocoa can be kind of hot itself, right? It can be like, right? That's a different kind of anticipation. Anticipating the worst, anticipating the worst is the cause of stress. So it can be like fear or excitement, right? Like our binary, love or fear. Anticipation can kind of go both ways. Yet, for the sake of what we're sharing here today, we're talking about it in a way that is the anticipating of the worst. Okay. I thought I had written something about this to share. Okay. Okay, I guess I didn't. So, let's see. Enjoy your date. Blessings. It already happened. It was fun. Oh, that kind of a date, honey. That, yeah, well, we'll see. Thank you. I'm sure I will when it's divinely timed to happen. But so this is it, right? Where do I want to go? Because I know we're going to be wrapping up here, and I definitely want to do at least a little 2 or 3 little mindful meditation practices with you. And I'll remind you that I do have a meditation playlist, and believe me, I look forward to adding on to it. I'm very happily becoming busier as an author, as a speaker, as a facilitator. I'm very happily becoming busier, and it's very interesting to manage all this, you know, from a laptop in your living room. So I'm very grateful for all the ways that you show your support and that you love me. I love you too, everyone. Where are we going? Why are this is getting very mindful meditation? I have a playlist. I'll come back later and I'll put a link to the specific mindful meditation. It's only about 10 minutes long, a series of guided little 1 to 2 minute practices. It's so good to shift your consciousness, to have an altered state of consciousness, to shift the biochemistry in your body away from stress and into a place of peace. And that's all we're doing. We're moving away from anticipation to expectation. That's what I want to do. Let's watch this presentation. It's very short, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up, okay? So let me get in here, and that's funny. Enjoy your date. Honey, we will see. Okay, let's see. So I have a really funny, we'll see if you think it's funny. I think it's gosh darn hilarious because I grew up with this. You know, I was born in 1972, and my mom is still quite a hip person. That's how I'm going to say it. I was exposed to a lot as a child, a lot. Oh my God. Okay, here, you're up. So I think this is hilarious and it's perfect. And this is just a little 30-second clip, but do you guys remember Rocky Horror Picture Show? I'm going to turn the AC unit off here for a moment because I'm going to put the volume up so you can hear this. So anyway, this is the kind of anticipation I'm talking about that can be like juicy, waiting for those mashed potatoes or for that hookup. And so let's see. And I'm praying this is going to play here. Oh, what's going on? Oh. Oh, interesting. Huh. Oh dear, my friends. That's very strange. It's very strange. Let's try it again. I think it's so funny too. Okay, you know what we're gonna have to do for this? We're just gonna have to take a moment and go to the side. So again, thank you for your chilling out and your patience here. Let me look for this in the trash. I think I dragged it into the trash. Yes, okay, good. So at least we can do it here. Whoop, for this part. And then we will, in fact, let me take this off and see if we can just drag this on here. Can we please? Okay, good. So I think we're up, we're back in. The volume's up, and please play.
So, come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. I see you shiver with anticipation. But maybe the rain is really to blame. So I'll remove the cause. But not the symptom.
Okay, I love that. I grew up with that. But isn't that funny? Because I'll remove the cause, but not the symptom. So even if you remove the neighbor, you remove the addictive substance, you remove the situation that triggers the stress in you, if you have not resolved and come to terms with making peace with it within yourself and healing with it, the symptom will still be there. But that's, anyway, for fun, I YouTube because it's the anticipation, right? That sexy anticipation. That is one thing, but it's that anticipation, that constant anticipation that something's going to go wrong that causes stress. This is a recent little post from me on Instagram. You cannot suffer the past because they do not exist. What you are suffering is your memory and your imagination. So how much of our stress is caused by our own minds? All of it. And I'll just read on the side here what I posted with it. How alive is your painful past? How present is your future? How much pain of the past do you walk with every day? How much stress do you put yourself under to have the future figured out? You are invited to remember the value of peace, mindfulness, present moment awareness. And if you have the energy tools, meaning, a meditation practice, a breathing practice, a hugging trees practice, a eating better nutritionally practice, get to work on yourself, which, by the way, is a full-time job. Don't let things slide and give way to tar body traps, because stress is, and now I'm just telling you, stress is artificial. It's not real. It's a part of the illusion. It's a part of the matrix. It's a part of the grid. It's a part of the binary system. Stress, amongst many points, is caused kindness towards yourself and others, and you will be free of stress and naturally abide in the now, where perfect health, wealth, and happiness live. It's a big deal, right? It can be a learning curve to really be kind. And sometimes we might feel like we're faking it because we just called that person a bad name last week and trying to be nice. Yet, ultimately we move beyond try and we simply embody that which we intend. And there can be a learning curve. But again, the past is done, future doesn't exist. And it's each of those aspects of the illusion of time can cause us that are unreal. I love this little character here. Look at the little buns. Can I just say, look at this. What is this character? What is this? I don't know, but it's adorable. And it's a repost from, I believe it's book. Zena's. Count your blessings. Often stress is, again, the root of that stress is from lack of time, lack of money, lack of health, lack of, the right kind of support, lack of security. All these outside things in the 3D realm, but in the 4D, that the Christ within you that knows that love is the truth, that you're always taken care of. I mean, really, when we just surrender more and more and more to that, and we count our blessings, we give thanks, that changes us, changes our chemistry, shifts us into a different timeline. And you realize, oh my gosh, I have so much to be grateful for. I'm way too blessed to be stressed. So I love that little character. We only have 2 more here. I do have another book that I have published called How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration. And I have on my Instagram, I have a second account called @law_of_vibration. And I do daily postings there of quotes from the book. And here's a couple that wanted to share today. So the 7th key is stop complaining. Imagine for one moment that every time you complain, what you're doing is you're affirming your mistrust in the divinity of the orchestration of the spheres and the universe and the stars. You're saying the universe does not have my back. I cannot trust love. I cannot trust that there is good in this world. Complaining is deceptive. It acts like concern, which is worry, which is stress, which is not peace, which is not love, which keeps you away from your true power and authority. being a master of your time and space. Complaining is deceptive. It acts like concern, yet it is only bringing about more lack, and lack consciousness is the root of stress. And just one more, forgiveness. When you hold on to bitterness, anger, and hurt, your energy becomes scattered, weakened, and contracted, right? Again, those blinders. They're either going to contract our vision or not. We're either going to be able to see from that expanded vision of self, which sees love and only love. Oh, Will has left a few comments, or not. Anticipation, say it. I learned that song. We know it. We'll have to do that at the piano, Will. Maybe. I know, right? So let's take a moment. We're going to wrap up here shortly, but let's do a little mindful meditation, which is, again, a way to shift. Because what we're doing when we meditate, okay, I'm going to unplug for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm going to take really conscious those 3 deep breaths. Like really, I'm going to really do it. I'm not just going to try to rush through it because I'm really busy. I need to keep going. What happens is we shift the chemistry in our body. It is said that we are either running on the parasympathetic or the sympathetic nervous system. What we want to do is learn how to integrate living in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, which is when your body is relaxed, your mind is relaxed, your emotions are and function at its optimum. You're not constipated anymore. You can shit regularly every day. Yes, I did say that. Stress, holding, controlling, tight, let go, expansion, right? Stress, holding, emotions, fear, control, needing outcomes to be a certain way, lack consciousness around money, around, whatever it is, time. If we don't have a way to yoga that out, to balance that out, to come back to remembering like, oh yeah, relax, I'm totally taken care of. I'm way too blessed to be stressed, right? Then we're all of a sudden the matrix is real, the illusion is real. It's all like, And so we go into the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, which is me with the ninja, nunchuck chain thing of like, man, I'm out here for survival. I need to like already act like I'm expecting, right? So, and that was the thing that I was looking in my notes and I couldn't find. So there's that weird thing, right? With anticipation, there's that funny thing with expectation, because on one hand, you can use the power of expectation, which is the knowingness, the absolute unbending knowingness. You can use that power where you've even gone beyond the binary, where you're like, I'm going to use anticipation and like it could go good, it could go really bad thing. And I'm going to just like put it all into like, it just all really sucks. We're all going to die. And which of course we are, but it doesn't have to suck. Where you can expect, again, the worst. What I'm expecting the worst outcome to this doctor's diagnosis, or what's the best thing that can happen? Okay. So it can get tricky in there, but we're learning. For the sake of what we're learning today is that constant anticipation of the worst thing causes stress. And we're giving the body the signal again for those adrenal glands that sit on the kidneys to spritz out cortisol, the stress hormone. So even just you thinking about something that happened to you 5 or 10 years ago and that memory has not been healed or resolved or forgiven, made peace with, just going into that memory. And often that's sometimes why we don't want to go. Remember, the way out is to go back in. And that's okay, right? When it's time, it's time. But when it's time, then it's time. But if it's left unchecked and it's just those spritzes and those spritzes and those, and your body's like, zzz, zzz, and it's causing stress rather than your chill factor, whether it's something that happened in the past, PTSD, and you're still like walking with that trauma. You see a billboard, you hear a song, those little adrenals spritzing out. Stress hormone. But again, we acclimate, we get used to it. We get used to how it feels to have those 15 cups of coffee a day. And then all of a sudden it's like, what do you mean? I can only have 13 cups of coffee? I can't operate unless I have 15 cups of coffee. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? We get used to, we acclimate all this. I mean, and that's a whole other 4DT, but you know, all the, from the 5G rollout, you know, all the cell towers, it's global now, the satellites and the 5G, where it's going is it's global. And we can talk about the man and corporations and the New World Order and the conspiracy theories. But ultimately, besides all that, while we're in a physical body on an earth plane, there's frequencies, right? Not only just our frequency, but radio frequencies, these electromagnetic frequencies that we get to navigate and understand, because they can cause stress on your body and cause illness and cancers and all sorts of defects and all sorts of stuff. So we're learning. Yet, as these towers keep pumping up, we're kind of mutating, right? As we're eating more GMOs and sometimes not even knowing it, we're like mutating. And our bodies, our mind, you know, we learn how to live under stress. And the real Jedi superpower is collapsing all that stuff and learning how to be peace in and amongst the illusion or any illusion of stress. Because really you get to a point where you're like, where you can just see that it's stress and you can call it out within yourself and you're like, okay, how can I correct this? So you shift from, in the place where I live now, I'm out in the desert and it's very chill. There's space, there's mountains, there's skies. Where I came from before, downtown Los Angeles, in the heart of it was the hustle and the bustle and the, you know, the drug addicts rolling around on the street that sometimes you'd have to like kind of walk around or walk over, and it, you know, and the noise and the pollution and the hustle. And so there's different levels of stress. I even remember we lived in a couple different lofts in the same building in downtown, and the first loft was right on the main street. And there was kids out there every day jamming and busking on the street, and all the crazy drunk people at the nighttime, because we lived right next to the Perch, which is a fancy rooftop bar. You know, and I was like, oh my God, okay, we're living in this gorgeous place in like the heart of the town, but there's this constant bombardment of noise. Eventually we moved into a loft that was in the back part of the building. You didn't hear anything. And I realized, I was like, oh my God. I was meditating one morning and I thought, this is the difference. I didn't even know how much stress, just like that was just grinding in every day from like just the drummers in that, you know, busking on the street and performers and fights breaking out. And again, the drunk screaming people and all that stuff. And you kind of get used to that again. And then you move to the countryside, to the back part of the loft where it's quiet, even though you're in downtown. And again, it's like that timeline shift and your body resets and you're like, oh, this is peace. This is different. And so we're learning. We're learning to make friends with peace. We're learning who we are. When we're relaxed, we're learning that it's okay to let go of control. And that divine nature, that divine wisdom of love to do the work with us and for us and through us for the highest good of all. Because again, it's not just about you and me. It is. But remember, as a one, it's about we. And yes, you can still be about we and then go and do you with that consciousness. Yet it's that constant and really like absolute surrender. Let it go. Faith is like acting like God is telling the truth, that everything is taken care of. The Most High is working out in your favor. And no matter what comes to pass, you will be able to move through it and navigate your way. And ultimately, come back to even greater love and light for the highest good. And so it is. So let's take a moment to find a seat And just lengthen through the spine, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and out. Simplest meditations, and we're going to just try a few rounds here. For just 1 minute, you're going to sit completely still and quiet. And you're going to extend your sense of hearing and simply listen to your environment. Maybe there's a AC unit, a fan buzzing, traffic driving by, the birds singing, whatever it is, just for 1 minute. Mindful meditation, just dropping in and expanding your senses, listening, listening, listening. Just take a breath. Deep breath in and out. And for our second set, we're going to observe the breath, and that's all we're going to do for a minute. As we breathe in through the nose, we're going to just watch the breath, and we're going to allow ourselves to lengthen the inhale. So a longer inhale and a longer exhale through the nose, both inhale and exhale, if that's comfortable for you. We'll just go right in, just 1 more minute here, observing the inhale, the exhale. If your mind wanders, comes distracted, just simply bring it back, redirect. Bring it back to just watching, feeling the air moving in through the nostrils, moving out. The next minute. Taking a deeper inhale, exhale. As a little transition, we're going to do just 1 more practice. It's non-judgment. So we're going to just sit for another minute to finish off here this afternoon. And we're not going to try to control the thoughts. We're just going to allow the mind to think whatever it thinks. Now, there is a notion that a thought only has a lifespan of no more than 4, maybe 4.5 seconds. I kind of like this notion, this idea, because it means if you don't do anything to that thought, it'll just disappear. Chances are there'll be another one right behind it, but that's okay. as we sit for this next minute, especially if it's a stress thought, a thought of lack, time, of money, of lack at all, practice here not adding to that thought, not judging it, not adding to it, just watching it or listening to it and letting it poof, disappear. And again, maybe just observe it for the next minute. Again, just taking a deep inhale, exhale. We'll slowly blink the eyes open. I call it, when I teach yoga, there's a certain part of the class. There's a certain arc where all of a sudden you look around and everyone's got that like goo goo gaga. Everybody's high, but it's yoga high, right? It's that, again, we've taken that moment. I know I spoke and we were talking a little in between, but really that was just 3 little 1-minute practices of mindful meditation. Of consciousness. If you were stressed before, you have the opportunity to at least not be that as much as you were, or to really just shift out of that completely back to your truth, your true nature, not going against the grain of your beautiful self, of your beautiful, kind self, but to be in the pocket of yourself with a capital S that's connected to Holy Spirit, to your higher self, to source, to God, to love, to light, to that divinity of the universe. Allowing that to sustain organs, your blood, your lymph, your sight, your tongue, your taste buds, your teeth, your gums, your hair, your organs, like all of you. To turn off the spritzing of the cortisol, just relax. You can relax. And I know it can be difficult if you have a past with a lot of pain and trauma, just to feel that it's okay to lay your sword down, to lay your shields down. I get it. Download my book. It's at, I have 2 free books. They're little mini books. One is called The Now Sensitivity. It's on iBooks right now. I don't think I have it on Kindle yet. No, I think I do. It's free. It's a free download. And that really speaks to that shift of being able to trust that it's okay to relax into yourself in the now, free of the past, free of the future, but really almost, when it's the first initiation, naked and vulnerable, of really trusting, really opening that heart and saying, I surrender. Show me, divine, show me. There's power in that. So anyway, the NOWOSPHERE book 1 is there for you. And also, if you're interested, when you subscribe at my website, TuesdayMayThomas.com, which that link is, all my links are in the show more box down below, you automatically you get on my mailing list. And I send out a monthly love letter with my blogs and my little bits and pieces, news for you, But also, when you first subscribe, you receive a free copy of my mini ebook, The Higher Self, Blueprint of Mastery. With that, The Higher Self is also available on iBooks. Soon I'm going to have it for free download on Kindle. And later I'm going to make little paperback versions that you can actually buy for gifts if you'd like. But for now, the Kindle and the digital will always be free of these two books, The Higher Self. So I'm just inviting you, if you feel that you don't have tools or you need to go a little deeper or keep integrating these ideas, that there are tools that I have for you. And of course, the Reiki Apprentice and my newest book, which we'll get back into, How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration, which has a workbook section in it that's really good. But again, speaking to, as we round off this day's 4DT, that it's okay, that you can relax and be safe. And I know for me, for the majority of my life, I always had to be, even though I gave up that ninja, right? And what do you even call it? See, I've even forgotten the name of it. That's how far I've given up. Isn't that funny? When you really let the memories go, you're like, I don't even know what it's called. There's a specific name for it. That thing I used to walk with, it's like, wow, letting go of that, releasing the past, really coming into the present moment, releasing those versions of self, and really forgetting who that even was and why we even needed to be in the world in that way. But for many years, I was like, oh, I can't relax. What are you talking about? Relax. It's not safe here to relax. But it really just wasn't safe in here. But once I got in here, healed and okay with feeling safe, then it was like, it expanded out to everything. And that's how it does for all of us. The most beautiful, powerful ways serves your path of spiritual growth, of sovereignty, self-mastery. May you, just always come back to knowing that you are love, that you are light, you are beautiful. And I'm so grateful for this community. I bless us all. I am so grateful for this platform. I love it. I thank you so, so very much. If you are interested to donate to this channel, again, there's a PayPal link down below. If you want to contact me for any reason, you have questions, or if you want me to talk about certain subjects, my email's down below. You can be like, hey, would you do a 4D Trinity on XYZ LMNOP? And we'll see. If you want to contact me, I do my tarot readings. And when you do leave me a book review on any of my books, when you leave a written review, you can contact me to get your $30 for 30-minute reading through Facebook or Google Hangouts. So again, thank you so much. You guys are saying goodbye. Thank you so very much, everyone. All blessings. You were on the same track. Feels today. All of this was perfect. All blessings. Good stuff. Tammy, thank you so much. And always blessings, Will. So much love, everyone. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Namaste with love.